Rick, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great, Keith. How are you this morning?
Good, man. Excited to do this episode with you. You ready?
Yeah, yeah. What do we got?
This one is titled, I Work on Myself So Others Don't Have to.
Is this like a prison theme or
Man, it's an internal prison
Yeah.
that I was trapped into. So there are a couple things that come to mind when I think of this is I've really worked on when I walk into a space being a contribution to the space. Like I've told this story, but some people may not have heard this podcast before. But in the Mayo Clinic Guide to Stress-Free Living, Dr. Sue tells about this story from a long time ago. This is, somewhere in a far distant land, there were this collection of tribes, and there was one ruler that kind of governed them all. And then one day, this nomadic tribe comes into the land where the others are occupying it, and they try to settle there. And when they do, the ruler of the collective tribe sends over a bowl of milk. So he sends it over. The bowl is filled to the top, is brimming over, and it's almost spilling out. And they present this to the leader of the nomadic tribe, as if to say, the land here is full. All the resources are spoken for. Please move on. So the wisdom of the leader of the nomadic tribe, he sees the bowl of milk. He takes a handful of sugar, scoops it up, and he drops it into the bowl, as if to say, we will take nothing from the land. We will only sweeten it. And they,
Oh,
I know, and they went on to become the most prosperous tribe in the region. And so when I come into a space, I work on myself now. So when I come into a space,
mm,
that's how I show up. Now, there was a time when I was Keith 1.0, we were long before the practice, that people I've heard after the fact, because I made it almost impossible to say it when I was Keith 1.0, to tell me this or give me this kind of feedback. But people would be not their full self when I would come into a space, because I would come in oftentimes, if it was in the morning, very quiet, not approachable. You know, some people say that they, don't talk to me until I've had my coffee, which is unfortunate. What I would say is don't talk to me until I talk to you first. That's what I was thinking. So that's I mean, people come in cheerful, man, and I'm a joy thief, right? I'm just,
mm.
extinguishing any kind of joy and just throwing a wet blanket over it is what I was doing. And so, but this is how I would show up. And so people would have to make room for this part of me. I complained a lot. So if you chose to be around me, you endured my constant complaining. It's not easy to find other people that like to complain too. So there was always a lot of company or talking about other people and judging people. So, if you weren't that kind of person or exhibited that kind of behavior, then you had to make room for me. And so, and along the way, I'm sure people, just threw their hands up and like, listen, I can't work on this guy anymore. I try to move him and shift him and redirect him to something positive or seeing the bright side, the glass half full. There's something beautiful here. He can't see it. I mean, I remember early on, you'd be like, man, Keith, look at the sunrise. I said, yeah, Rick, but you see them like they're not doing these squats over here, right? Like, let me go. like, dude, like they go, so and so didn't keep a commitment. Keith, man, you in this beautiful place. Did you see the moon last night? No, Rick. I mean, I was, and so people tried to redirect me, man, but I was so identified with this behavior, with this negative narrative, these thoughts. I thought they were me. I thought this was the most important thing, and it wasn't. It wasn't just running my life; it was ruining my life, ruining it. And so something happened 7 years ago to where I got on this path with the practice. And I didn't know it at the time, but when I was working on myself, and the goal is that I had all these things that were happening in life. And for the people on the outside, it looked like it could be rock bottom, that it could be challenging. What I saw was an opening. And so I treated it that way, and I started working on myself. And I remember very, very clearly when people would try to tell me or want to tell me about what other people were saying about me, which wasn't positive, I would say, no, I'm not interested in hearing what they say. I'm sending them love. because it was all about me working on me, being able to handle what people say about me, don't like about me. It's all good. So I continue to work on myself. And I didn't, it was for me to have inner peace no matter how life or people show up. But one of the things that has happened along the way, this is one of those like beautiful benefits that you didn't even like sign up for,
Mm.
is that you start to become a contribution to the space. You start to sweeten the bowl every time you come in. And so now people don't have to make allowances for me. Like, you know what, he's going to be, his automatic answer to this is going to be no. Or he's going to find a problem with this idea we just had. Or he's going to find a way to change, like all this other stuff that people, he's going to judge, he's going to be negative, like all this other stuff that people had to make room for me. They don't have to anymore, because part of this practice is that I work on myself so other people don't have to. Like, that's beautiful. I'm telling one quick story. There was this one incident that happened when I was leading a workout group over at the Village. And for those who are unfamiliar with the Village, but it's a upscale like fitness resort. It's pretty expensive, but it's well done. So I was there, and this one client would come in late, to class, and I was Keith 1.0, so I had no tolerance for that. Now, don't get me wrong, when I'm late, I want grace, but when somebody else is late, like put him in chains and get him out of here. But I want a lot of grace. And so, but she came in late, and I said, "Hey, listen, we're not recreating this workout. You're out, so you might as well step out." So she went to go tell management about this.
Mm.
The manager was an enlightened soul. He couldn't have been nicer.
Mm.
Came and say, "Hey, Keith, Elizabeth, I'm not going to say you got to apologize to her for the way. Well, she was wrong. This is me. She was wrong." He's like, "Here at the Village, the customer's right." And I was like, "Oh, I'm not saying that you're wrong, but he was trying to help me, Rick. But again, it's like you trying to make me aware of the beautiful sunrises and sunsets. I couldn't hear it. I couldn't hear it." So he goes on to say, "Listen, why don't you take a 2 week break?" I was like, "No, I don't. I don't have to take a 2 week break. Like I can just stop teaching. The only way I'm coming back here to teach is she owes me an apology." Who said? Who says that? The ego says that. So and he just quietly said, "Okay, Keith, it's unfortunate that you feel that way. We really value you here, but if that's your choice, we totally understand. If you change your mind, just let us know."
Oh man.
It couldn't have been nicer, Rick. But here he is, just making room for me, you know. And other people in class making room for me. And I said, I'm going to work on myself in such a way that I want to experience inner peace. And like I said, there was this added benefit that came from me doing this work, is other people don't have to work on me.
Mm.
So, Rick, what are your thoughts, on this subject?
I'm mesmerized. I want you to keep rolling. I like all that. That was very, very good. Yeah, I just have one little tiny comment, and that is that the reason why you work on yourself to get what you want out of life, which usually involves the feeling of inner peace, a sense of calmness, a sense of purpose, a sense of mission, a sense of kindness, a sense of being at home in the world and at home in your own skin. Those are the things I'm working on for myself. No one can teach you that. So, it's not as if somebody who's a guru can come in and jump inside your head or jump inside your body and live those experiences and then leave and then you'll be fine. You have to do the work. So the idea is, the topic of the show is that you make your own changes because you don't want others to try to change you. Well, the reality is they can't anyway. I mean, usually there's a resistance to other people treating or to training us in a certain way. And I think that we have to always focus on what it is that we're missing in our lives and then develop a strategy to get it. And usually the strategy and the missing part is always the same. I feel too harried. I'm always worried. I have anxiety. I don't feel good. I'm out of sorts. I'm frustrated. All of those things that are human emotions, those don't go away after you've gone through the practice, but you have a way of coping with them that doesn't take a toll like it used to take before the practice. And you're aware of them. And so that helps you. So my point, I guess, is just that the externals in life, including the external people who want to change you or who you admire and you think can change you, can't. you have to do the work yourself, and you have to do the work consistently all the time and be aware all the time. I don't think you ever, even the Dalai Lama says this, you never, you're a human being. You're built with a certain amount of software that runs this body hardware. And that software is always going to be of the human variety, not of the angelic biblical variety. It is there and it's full of defects. And so the way you sort of wash that is by focusing on what's missing and what your ego is requiring you to do, and then make a decision about whether you want to follow that. So I love your stories, and I can't wait to hear more of them. I love that one. The poor lady's a minute late, and
Oh,
you end up getting fired.
not I fired myself.
Fired yourself, yeah.
Yeah, they were like, no. They were like, no. They were like, we don't want you to go. And I was like, I'm out of here.
Isn't that, is that something you really wanted? I mean, on the drive home, were you thinking, man, I sure showed them I quit?
No.
It's like shooting yourself in the foot, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, and no, what I wanted was an apology. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, are you serious? Like I wasn't owed an apology. That's what the ego says. You owe me an apology. No, you don't.
No, that's right.
Seriously. Like, no, I mean the conscious self doesn't need any of that. But
That's
I'm
right.
different. Like when those things happen now, man, I'm different. I'm so different again. And so, I'm hoping that I'm a contribution to the spaces that I come into. But again, I work on myself so other people don't have to, and I just think about the people in my life. I go back to my stepfather who was on his own journey. I mean, think about that, man. For those people that had parents who, had their own struggles. What if their parents had a practice, right?
Mm.
What if your colleagues and your coworkers did? What if you had one? Your kids would be like, "Oh my God, Keith, I hear you. I wish my parents had a practice." They're going on about I'm not good enough in this way, or I'm not doing this, and my choice is here, and all this other stuff. My hair, my what? Like, wow, what if they had a practice? That'd be great.
Mm.
And so, yeah, I am really working on that. Oh, that tells me one more quick story. One of my friends, um, I've known her for maybe like 15 years, and in the 15 years I've known her, she has this Keith 1.0 superpower, and it's complaining and judging everybody else. The way that she walks into the room is exactly the way I used to walk into the room. It's looking for what needs to be improved and what's wrong, what needs to be improved, and how it can be better. It's not good enough the way it is. Always finding something that's going to be a problem. And her children, when they were kids, they put up with this and they made room for her. And the way that she would show up, and part of making room for her was they stopped sharing things with her because they couldn't. And so parents are like, "Oh, you don't tell me anything." Well, or love or significant others, why don't you tell me something? Well, perhaps it's the way you show up, that I have to make room for you showing up this way. And I'd rather not have that additional level of suffering. So what's happened is that her kids told her, when they got 18, they were like, "Hey, listen, your behavior is just it's negative. You're always judging. Nothing is ever good enough. And if you get old and you need somewhere to stay, if this doesn't change, you won't be welcome in my home."
Wow.
And so they probably delivered that message to her 12 years ago. And now she's in a space to where she needs a place to stay.
Mm.
And her kids, and she had 12 years to work on herself, not for them, but for her, because she's suffering, but she had 12 years to work on herself and she didn't. And she's 6 months away from needing a place to stay. Like she needs a place to stay. And her kids have said, "You're not welcome here."
Mm.
Because you're bringing that with you. And for their childhood all the way up to their adult life to this point, they've been making room for her, for her negative behavior. Like she doesn't contribute to the space. And they have very positive lives. Their emotional intelligence is so high. Their lives are so peaceful. The only time they're not peaceful, I know the family, is when she's around.
Mm.
And so now she's at this space. And so we had a conversation a few weeks ago, and I just listened to it. I'm just like, man, it's the same conversation you had 12 years ago.
Mm.
Like when we, 15 years ago when we met. Another friend, divorced. She's still talking about the divorce. It's almost 10 years ago. You might as well stay married. Like, seriously.
I mean, still complaining about the
Like
same
the
stuff.
divorce or the ex-spouse and all this. Like,
Yeah.
why? Like, you might as well, like, like they parent differently. They do this. And, like if you got to the place where you can handle that 10 years ago, it wouldn't be a problem now. But, and so the people that listen to you talk about that kind of stuff, they make room for that.
Mhm.
Or you can handle it, and then nobody needs to make room for anything. You work on yourself in such a way that other people don't have to work on you. And so again, that's one of the beautiful benefits of working on yourself, man. So, hopefully that's informative for anybody out there who is not have a close relationship with people around them or their families, or they got some victim narrative that's being played out. Like,
Yeah,
like work on yourself. And then, there's all these benefits that come with that, starting with inner peace for yourself.
that's
So
beautiful. Beautiful, Keith. I love that. That's a wonderful story. I really get so much out of your anecdotes.
thank you, Rick.
You've lived a life where you've learned a lot of lessons, and I appreciate that you're
Wow.
sharing them. When some of them are the fingers are pointing back at you,
Oh,
and
100%.
yeah,
100%.
that's but that's part of what authenticity is, right? We run into problems when we try to portray ourselves as something we're not, and we're decidedly not perfect.
Yeah. And Rick, I was on that path. I was the path that my friend is on. I was on that path if I hadn't started working on myself. That was my almost certain, going to be my reality.
Yeah,
Thank God, man.
yeah.
Man. And you've inspired a lot of my redirection. So I just want to thank you for that, man. I love you, Rick.
I love you. Thank you for the compliment. I'm not sure it's deserved, but thank you. I appreciate it. I love you, buddy. Next week, let's do something. I think we should come in costumes because we're getting close to Halloween,
Okay.
and at least dress up Sarge. And I appreciate it if you'd start speaking. He's kind of withholding, and I'm feeling a little rejected.
Okay. Yeah, he didn't talk much. He's learning to keep noble silence.
Noble silence. All right, lovely.
I love you, man.
I love you. Adios.
Adios.